Adrian kind of shut down after I pulled the veto card on him. Anytime I called him Adri, I knew I'd get away with whatever shenanigans I was trying to do. Usually I would just do it when he was trying to convince me to go to sleep or on the occasions he was able to stay over or small things like that. I'd never really tried it on something so big. It worked to make him forget about it to an extent. For hours after that conversation we'd had so early, at literally 9 in the morning, he sat stoically and listened to me trying to explain to him that I was going to be okay. He wasn't looking at me like usual, and that upset me more than I expected it would. I knew his lack of facial expression meant it was killing him inside, and I wanted to fix it, but I didn't know how. Eventually I just sighed and turned on music, trying to memorize his face and voice for until the next time he could come over, since I had no clue how long he'd be able to stay. The thought of him having to leave again made me feel like I could cry all the blue in the sky. He eventually pushed his hair out of his eyes and took a deep breath, finally meeting my eyes, and with more anxiety on his face than anger, to my surprise. Tommy? That said it was going to be the death of me. What's wrong, Adrian? I asked softly. I was pretty sure I knew, but we'd been working together on trying to express feelings, since we both had been trained for longer, that our feelings weren't to be discussed. I didn't mean to upset you. With what I said, I just... His gaze turned to the floor, and he rubbed his jacket-covered arms. I don't like the thought of you becoming like me and my brother, he finally finished. I hadn't expected that last part. Adrian didn't mention his brother as much these last 2 years. I'd be lucky to be anything like either of you, in my opinion, I said. When he looked back up at me, his face held enough pain to be when I asked him where his bruises came from all those years ago. You're a wonderful person, and I liked your brother when I got to meet him. Tommy, my brother is dead, and I've gotten close. That stuff comes from the things your aunt is doing, he said. I bit the inside of my cheek and frowned. I don't want you to get... He covered his face and took another shaky breath. Sad. Like us. Okay, I can understand that, but I don't want you to get in trouble. I'd much prefer if we could get me out of the house without murder. I answered. He nodded slowly. And I'm sorry about your brother. Is that why you haven't mentioned him as much? I didn't want you to ask more about what had happened, so I've just been trying to be vague. Even Jane doesn't know what happened, he admitted. And while he seemed to feel a little better knowing I did intend to try to leave, I could tell it didn't help as much as I wanted it to. We spent several more hours trying to plan a call to the Child Protective Services, since neither of us really know how to talk on the phone well, and Adrian got a call. He was told that after dinner, his foster family could potentially find a hotel and stay there so that we'd get to see each other longer. This was when we'd both noticed how late it had gotten. Adrian had never fully stopped worrying, and I felt hilariously guilty about that. When he got worried enough, he would start to take on the traits of his brother. He would tremble a little, start looking around more frequently, and cover his hands with his sleeves if he was wearing long ones. It was when his worry turned into anger or protectiveness that you could see the Phil Lester in him. His eyes went from gentle, caring, and shy to nearly a blazing inferno. He would clench his fists and stand straighter, or in some cases that were truly frightening, he would get calm and quieter, and you could only tell that he was damn near murderous when you could see the smile. I could always tell he was getting to the truly dangerous anger when he clenched his jaw. For another hour, we were trying to research on how to make an actual report and who would be believed the most if they submitted it, until it was time for dinner. When Adrian was able to see me, he almost always stayed for dinner, but this time my aunt didn't want to let him. Adrian was still in his worried state, but I could tell seeing the woman who turned my skin lilac and crimson was making him get angry. I didn't know you'd turn my nephew into we don't say that word, and I don't want you to see him again. I'll be getting the devil out of this boy, and I don't need you undoing my work, my aunt said. I knew right then that this wouldn't end well. If there was one thing that would set off Adri above all else, it was that slur. That last sentence she said didn't help, but the first had likely condemned her to a worse fate than my parents. When we'd finally learned what that word meant, we agreed that we wouldn't let each other call us that. Adrian didn't leave, and I saw his demeanor switch on a dime. My aunt probably didn't catch it, and that could mean her doom. What did you just call Tommy? He asked. He had kept the polite tone he always addressed her with, which I respected him for, but I could see the Tobas embers burning in his eyes. I hissed his name, trying to calm him down even a little, but what she said next would have made it a moot point even if he had hurt me. I called him a, we don't say that, boy, Look it up, he cut her off, and I could see his anger only getting more extreme. I know what it means. He looked at me and got the slightest calmer. Ma'am, but I would like it if you never called Tommy that again. That is one word I consider inherently wrong, miss. He was able to keep a respectful tone the entire time, and I was proud of him, but also oh so afraid of her turning him lilac too, and I couldn't stop her. I was no Phil Lester. I will call him what I like. He is under my roof, he follows my rules, and I will do with him what I want. Now leave. Don't make me tell the priest, my aunt said. You can tell the priest if you like, ma'am. But I don't like it when people say that word. And I think that any holy man would agree that you shouldn't call your nephew an insult like that. Adri replied. Her bringing in the priest was likely making him remember the smell of a burning church. And what word is it that you would like me not to call Thomas? She asked cruelly. You know what word I mean, miss, I'm sure. His hands were starting to shake. Say it, demon child, ain't that hard? If she kept asking, she wouldn't like the way that he snapped. He never had a problem with being insulted by any authority figure, but if someone brought up a loved one, or especially someone called me a name, he was furious. I can't say that word, he said through gritted teeth. I had to stop this. Please stop. I can ask him to leave for now. It's not a problem. I was shaking a little from worry that she would start hitting one of us, and I didn't know which would be scarier. No, he's going to say it. We don't say that word. If he's such a grown-up, he'll tell me what word he means. She said, Please do not call him that disgusting word in front of me, miss. It's making me angry, and I do not like to be rude to adults. Adrian said. She was reaching the limit that no one liked to see. I will call him what I like. Now get the hell out of my house, she retorted. I bit my lip and made a decision that I didn't really think through in hindsight. I was rude right back to my aunt. If he has limits, you're supposed to respect them. Isn't that a thing, loving thy neighbor as thyself, Lauren? I said, stepping between her and the boy who I loved but I had never told. You're not a very good Christian if you're not only harassing him but also calling me names, at least, I'd say. Then she made the worst decision I think she could have made. She grabbed me by my shirt and started turning the newly lightened bruises vibrant once more. It only took maybe 30 seconds for her grip to leave me, but by then I already felt blood on my lip and new bruises to come on my arms. I also knew that there would be a few broken bones that lavender would do nothing to fix when she started throwing kicks to my ribs, even after Adria yanked her off me. We had to clean up the crimson roses after that, once the police took my aunt to the hospital. She wasn't feeling well.